little thing so that, I don't take up too much of Taka's time.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, welcome everybody. So glad to have you all. And I think some other folks will be joining too. But I'm just going to go ahead and kick things off so that we can have as much time as possible for this tutorial. We're so grateful to Dr. Taka Yamashita, who is here today, who's going to give us an introduction to R and R Commander. And if you're like me, I'm here for the beginner tutorial. This will be at sort of that introductory level, and I'm really excited to learn about R, and also we'll be doing some talking about how to hopefully apply this in the classroom for those of you who teach. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Taka. Thank you so much, Taka, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm gonna actually share my screen, so I prepared some. Let's see. This is the screen number 1, so this should be it. I hope you can see my screen.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay,
thank you.
Excellent. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for this opportunity to share something that I'm interested in with you. And then, yeah, thank you, Christine, for the introduction. So maybe I should start from this, like how I become to use R. So when I was a grad student about 4 years ago, I'm sorry, 11 years ago, so I had an opportunity to work with one of my mentors, who was a biostatistician, Dr. John Baylor from Miami University. And this Miami University, by the way, is in Ohio, not in Florida. There's no sunshine, no beach, like no whatever. So it was in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. And he told me about this R. At that point, I had no idea what it is. And he told me this is the future of statistics and you should know something about it. I said, okay. So I started playing with it because I had nothing else to do. And then I sort of figured out how to conduct some basic statistics and statistical analysis. And then after that, I sort of stopped using that because I was trained in SAS. And then I think everyone knows what the SAS is. So I mostly use SAS and I didn't use R for quite some time. And I finished my doctoral program. I did 1 year of postdoctoral training at the Scripps Gerontology Center. And I got my first job as an assistant professor of sociology at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And I assure you that there is a university in Las Vegas, not just the casinos. So I moved to Las Vegas from Ohio. And I didn't do very good planning. So my first apartment has nothing, no internet, no furniture, basically nothing for 2 to 3 weeks. But there was an immediate need for me to complete the revise and resubmit for one of my manuscripts under review. And then I realized that I removed SAS and SPSS from my personal laptop. So I didn't know what to do. And I remember that I still have R because it's free. And then, so I ended up doing the revise and resubmit, R and R using R. I know, I just wanted to say this. So that's how I started using R. So in this session, what I would like to do is to just introduce R and another R package called R Commander. So before I start this session, I'd like to get the sense of what the exposure to R is like in this participants. So Amy, would you mind pulling up the poll number 1?
Sure. They're all 3 are going to launch at the same time.
Oh, that's fine. Maybe, yeah, I was hoping to do that one by one, but that's okay. Yeah. I see. Is it up?
Yep, it looks good,
Yes,
Taka.
yeah. People
Oh, so
are
really? Oh, okay. I don't get to see
things.
that actually. So maybe
Under the chat, you can open the
under
polling
the
box
chat.
maybe as a co-host.
Okay, let me see. I haven't done this yet. So under
I thought you would get the poll yourself actually.
yeah, I don't see. Maybe I'm sharing the screen, so I don't get to see that. If I open, oh, there you go. I found it. So maybe give like another 10 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 11 people, 3 people left. So actually, all of you pretty much have heard of R or used R. And then when it comes to the primary statistical package, some use Excel, some use SPSS, some use SAS, Stata, R. So that's great. And when you make figures, most of you use Excel. And I'm glad no one picked grad students because that's kind of not nice, but sometimes necessary. Okay, excellent. Thank you for answering to this poll. This would give me some idea of what to say next. Okay, so what I'd like to do today is to talk about these 4 things. I will list just very general concerns about the statistical softwares, and then maybe suggest R and R Commander as the potential solutions to that. And then also I'd like to spend a few minutes to talk about our social statistics project supported by the Robaski Innovation Fund. Then I will provide a series of learning resources for you at the end. So we already did this. Oh, shoot. Let me try again. Okay. So we already did this software. So you know what to use. So this is the empirical classification of what the statistical software looks like. I'm just kidding. This is just a half joke, but it sort of has a good point. If you use Excel for statistical analysis, it doesn't sound too serious. But depending on your skill levels, you can actually do most of the things in Excel. SPSS, get the job done. It'll take you from here to there. But again, it doesn't sound too serious from some communities' perspectives. And the SAS is an old school statistical software, and I use mostly SAS. And the Stata is more modernized versions. And the R is something quite unique compared to the existing commercial software packages, because R is not just one software. It's more like a platform that can adapt different type of analysis, different syntax, different the programming. So R is just like a team, and then each department, each division has different skill sets, just like UMBC. So this is how we look at the statistical software. And there are 4 general issues with existing commercial packages. Number 1 is the cost. It's a licensing fee. SAS, for example, would cost about $300 per user in the organizational license. If you were to get the individual license, estimated about like $1,000 to $5,000, depending on what kind of features you need, what kind of training modules you need. So it's quite expensive in my opinion. Another issue is skill transferability. So when I moved to Las Vegas, I didn't have SAS or SPSS. So if SPSS is the only one I could use, the software is not available. I can't use my skills using that statistical package. So that could be a problem. And skill acquisitions. So statistical programming forces you to think about how exactly you carry out statistical analysis. Point and click works, especially for the simple analysis. But I think programming will actually force you, you need to tell exactly what to do to the software in particular order, right? So I think this would actually force us to think more. And from the education standpoint, I think this is critical. The last point is that, you know, when you have free time and go out Friday night, you meet people, of course you talk about the statistics, right? And if you say, I use R, people want to get to know you more. But if you say, like, I use SPSS, maybe they'll say, have a nice weekend, and they walk away. I'm just kidding. But just say, you know, being able to use R is kind of trendy, timely, and cool, in my opinion. But if you are hardcore R users, you probably don't like people anyway, so this might not be a concern. So given these four general concerns, R might be a solution because R is open source application. It's free. It works on Windows, Mac, Linux, and it's a syntax-based software. So you can use these programming skills in other packages like SAS or Stata, right? And it forces you to think about how to carry out your statistical statistical analysis. And another big advantage of using R is that you get to use the cutting edge methods. For commercial software like SAS, it takes years to incorporate new methods. But for R, it's much quicker, and then you can just download a new package and that includes all the algorithm of cutting methods, and you can immediately start using it. So that's a huge advantage for the quantitative researchers. And also, finally, R has huge communities and resources online. So if you face any issues with R, most likely somebody else already faced that issues, resolved it, and shared the solutions. So sometimes it's difficult for me to find how to do certain analysis in SAS. You know, I can look up books and online, but it's really difficult to find it. But for R, it's much, much easier to do that. So this could be a solution. But at the same time, I can see that many people, particularly undergraduate students, have some issues with the programming. So if you are very new to the programming, this could be relatively intimidating, right? So one of the potential solutions may be to use the R commander, developed by Dr. John Fox from the McMaster University of Canada. What this R commander package does is to turn the R into a GUI application. It's a graphic user interface. So you get to just point and click and then carry out statistical analysis. The R commander would also generate R syntax, right? So in SPSS does the same thing. But what's good about this is that you don't have to look up how to write syntax for, let's say, like t-test or chi-square test or something simple. You can just use R commander to get this syntax and replace the variables for your future analysis. So this is really useful teaching tools as well. And for the replications, not so much about the simple analysis, but when it comes to complex analysis that requires multiple steps, writing syntax, keeping the syntax is much, much easier, right? You can easily edit, you can easily replicate the same analysis. But if you have to memorize or document, you know, where to click, in what order, you could make a mistake. So there are some advantages of using R commander and R. So this whole statement is just to say that you can use R commander to skip some of the initial programming part for the data analysis and the visualizations. But what this doesn't is that you still need to know about the statistics. The R commander is not the AI that would suggest you to appropriate analysis or do the analysis for you. So you still need to tell R commander exactly what to do by pointing and clicking. But this can skip initial part of the programming. So this is an advantage, and it has so much potential for statistics education as well. So in next few minutes, what I would like to do is to show, if you have never used R, this is how you can get it started in 3 steps. Number 1 is you go to our foundation, rproject.org website and install R. It's all free. You can just download the base R on your computer. Right? The next step, you need to do a little bit of programming. You just need to type install.packages and R commander. And R cares about uppercase and lowercase. So the first letter of this R commander has to be uppercase. Right? You can download that from CRAN. That's the Comprehensive R Archive Network. There are, I don't know exactly how many locations, but across the world, some universities, organizations have the database that stores all the packages, and you can just easily download from it. If the R might ask you to pick particular CRAN, any US locations, actually any location for that matter works, but I usually use just the US locations. And then you need to call this R commander function using the library statement. So once you install this package, you don't have to do this again on the same computer, but every time you need to call R commander, and I will show you in a little bit. And I've been saying a lot about R, and mostly in a positive way, but I just wanted to tell you that a couple of things. Number 1 is R is not the cult organization or Ponzi scheme. So you don't have to worry about using R. All of a sudden, somebody come to your house and then ask questions or ask for donations. It's not going to happen. So you don't have to worry about that. And then I think I was telling Christine earlier that, so this session is quite for the beginners. So if you are already intermediate to the advanced R user, I talk a little bit about application for the social statistics education. So that might be interesting to you. But otherwise, most of the stuff that I'm going to talk about are very basic. So just wanted to say these 2 things. So since I'm sharing the screen, I should be able to do this, but let me see if I can do that. And okay, I don't know if this is big enough, but this is the best I can do. So this is what the base R looks like. And if you want to just play with it, what I would suggest is to create what's called object. Object is like a container that has text data, numeric data. So for example, you can type something like this, right? And then you can call this object so that this object contains this text data, hello CS3. You can do the same thing for multiple data points like this. And then you can do the same thing. And same thing for the numbers. And if you call numbers, excuse me, then you get to retrieve these numbers. So you can create your own database. And the R actually works as a simple calculator. So if you need to add some numbers up, you can do something like this. And then, maybe Friday night when you are having dinner with family, all of a sudden you might need to exponentiate some numbers. You could do something like this. And then all of a sudden you might have to log transform certain numbers. You can do this, right? So it could work as a simple calculator. So this is quite easy, right? And just to show you, if you type, I already installed the R Commander package. So if you type lively R Commander and then hit enter, then you can call. It might take a little bit of time, but it should call this R Commander window. So the R Commander doesn't skip like 100% of the programming, but just type library R Commander. So this will call this point and click applications. Right? Okay. So I'd like to demonstrate just one simple analysis. I want to compute the Pearson's R correlation coefficient in R Commander. And one of the good things about this R and R Commander is that they provide some of the pre-loaded data set. So this could be quite useful for statistics educations, right? You don't have to find and incorporate some other data set that students can use. So you can just go to the data, data in packages, read the data set from an attached package. And then I'm going to use this data set called cars. It has only 2 variables. I'm going to show you in a little bit. And since I want to calculate Pearson's R, there is a statistics, summaries, and correlation test. Right? If you go there, you see 2 variables, distance and the speed. The speed is how fast your car is going. And distance is how long it takes for this car to stop. Right? So it's relatively simple. And I pick the Pearson's R and 2-sided for the alternative hypothesis testing. And then all I need to do is just click OK. And then you get correlation coefficient. Right? And you can do all these for free. Right? So if you have nothing to do Friday night, this may be a way to entertain yourself. Probably not. And so I also want to show you just for your reference, if I were to write the syntax for this same analysis, you could do something like this. First step is to use the data statement to call out the data set, cars. And you can just type view, but the first one needs to be uppercase. And you can look at the data. So data looks like this. And you can use summary function and then core function and specify what kind of variables you want to use, and you get this output. Right. So you can do most of the simple stuff with like 1 or 2 lines. So this is quite useful. And then obviously the results are exactly the same. So I already asked you about what kind of software you use to make figures, right? I think most of you used Excel. And I mostly use Excel and R, depending on what kind of figure I need to create. For instance, if I wanted to make some grouped bar chart, I write syntax like this, including the data points. And if I execute this command, you get this kind of figures. If I wanted to make a line chart, I can write this syntax, and you get this type of figures. So you can easily do this in Excel. But how about something like this? So all of a sudden, somebody give you a research money to create this type of graphic. How would you go about it? Maybe spending some time with Google and using Excel, you may be able to create something like this relatively easily. But imagine how many times you have to click and make adjustment manually. So and if you make one mistakes and then you lose the data, you're gonna have to do all over again, right? So how do we do that? And this is actually one of the figures I created a while ago. And so this is how I did it. I wrote these R syntax, right, R statement, including the data points. And I used a package called the ggplot2, and then also the R color brewer. And if you execute this command, you can create something like this. Technically, I could have done all the editing using syntax, but it was just way too difficult for me. So I exported this, the base graphic to the Adobe Illustrator, and the rest of the part I just edited using the Adobe Illustrator. So this is one of the relatively common way to use R. Just create base graphics, and then you can change font or add some features using Adobe Illustrators. So this is that's usually how I do it. So overall, R is great for the data visualizations. This is a really good skills to have. Sometimes I review peer-reviewed journal articles, and if the figures are very low quality, it doesn't give me a very good impression. So for us, social scientists, I think it's really important for us to pay attention to the high quality graphics. It shows the data, it tells a story, it gives a good impression to the reviewers. So this is a really important skill sets to have. So this is just my experience, but there is a relationship between confidence in your R skills and the time. So this is how it went in my case. So once you start using R, like immediately you feel like you got this, right? Like you know how to use R, and then you can do most of the things yourself using R. But over time, you started realizing that how little you know about all these R packages and the things that you can do. Even simple analysis, there are like hundreds of better ways to do the same thing more efficiently. So, so my confidence level is probably around here right now. It's not zero. I think I can do most of the things that I need, but it's just not very confident because there's so much out there. Okay, so that's the quick introduction to R and R Commander. So now, if you have never done this, you should be able to at least launch R Commander and carry out a couple of simple analysis. So spending maybe next few minutes, I would like to talk about social statistics education project supported by the UMBC's Rabarsky Innovation Fund. And this was based on my case study published in 2019. So this is the research team, myself, Shuyan-san from Psychology Department, and Christine Mayer from Sociology program and the Gerontology program. And I couldn't find the picture of Christine without sunglasses because I got these from the department website. And so I wanted to kind of look cool. So I added the sunglasses manually. I didn't get the permission from Shuyan. So if you see Shuyan, please don't tell her I did this. Maybe she doesn't care. So the project overview, use R Commander in the social statistics course. So that's the whole purpose of this study. So we developed supplemental R Commander-based statistics training program. We developed 7 short modules. Each can be completed within like 30 minutes, maybe like 45 minutes, depending on the students. So we added this component to the existing statistics course. They mostly use either SPSS. I think they used SPSS. So in addition to SPSS lab work, we added this supplemental training. And then we collected the data for 4 semesters, and we conducted some assessment for students' statistics knowledge as well as statistics anxiety. Unfortunately, once after 1 semester, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and we all switched to the online courses. And then we were concerned about additional burden on students and instructors. So we just made it available to students, but we didn't require them to complete this supplemental training. So we were not able to achieve our primary goal, but we still continued collecting data and ended up having pre-pandemic data points and during pandemic data points. So we learned something that we didn't expect. The final sample size was 397, 160 students from sociology, and then 237 students from psychology undergraduate program. So one of the findings, and I'm glad we found this, but students improved their statistics knowledge after 1 semester of coursework. So that's good. But believe it or not, there is not too much empirical evidence showing that taking statistics course will improve your knowledge. So this is, at least we added the empirical data point. The other one was that the COVID-19 actually made a negative impact on students' learning outcome. So compared to the pre-pandemic time, the students' improvement in the statistics knowledge was not quite as much. And also the COVID-19 pandemic impacted interest in statistics. So the students started losing interest once the pandemic hit. This is kind of understandable because it moved to online, 100% online. And then, all of us have to do additional work to keep up with all the changes every day. So we have some preliminary explanations, but we are still looking into why the pandemic might change the students' learning outcomes as well as their statistics anxiety or interest. And then using very limited amount of data, we found that additional R commander training didn't impact either learning outcome or attitude towards statistics. So this might sound kind of negative, but we see as actually a positive outcomes. The point is that we added additional work to the students' coursework, but it didn't negatively impact their attitude, and they get additional programming training. They learned how to use R commander, but it didn't impact their attitude. So our tentative conclusion is that we can use R commander for students' statistics educations without too much problems. Okay. And I was supposed to develop a manuscript based on this data, but I'm still working on it. So once I have a final result, I'll be happy to share more details. And finally, I would like to just show you a series of learning resources. And I can share these PowerPoint slides, except for that sunglass picture part. So you don't have to memorize anything. And there's a good book by John Fox, the developer of R Commander. I have this book, and it's quite useful. And he also have a website that provides some examples of how to use R Commander. And this is one of my favorite R site, Quick R. So if you forget how to compute the power of particular regression model, you can quickly do that with R. And there are some examples. And then UCLA's Statistical Methods and Data Analysis website is fantastic because it has actual example of the programs and the output. And for R, SPSS, Stata, M+, etc. So if you need some examples of how to carry out complex analysis, right, longitudinal data analysis, you can easily find that from this website. And I recently found that there's a big book of R. It's all free, and it has some video tutorials, and there are lots of good user-friendly descriptions of how to use R. Right? So this is really useful resource, and it's all free. And I think this big book of R could be used as a textbook, so the students can access to this resource without paying anything. And this morning, my colleague Christine Mayer shared this new blog for Introduction to Statistics in R for Criminologists. I haven't had a chance to explore this website fully, but I sort of took a look at some of the training modules, and these are really good. And this is very similar to what we did in Robusky Innovation Fund project. So we were just joking that maybe like all the brilliant people think similarly, but just a thought. So this is really good resource if you are new to R. And then I wasn't sure if I should introduce this, but there's another option in addition to the R commander. It's called the Blue Sky Statistics. So the former SPSS employees left their company, and then they created this R-based GUI applications. I think individual use, this is for free. But if you want to add some complex analysis functions, and if you want to use for commercial purpose, there are some fees associated with it. So this could be an alternative to R Commander. And then visually, this might look a little bit better. It looks more professional and commercial, but R Commander is completely free, so it has some advantages. Okay, so just to sum up, R and R Commander has great potential for our statistical analysis needs and the social statistics education. And again, it's free, so why not try it today? That's actually all I have for you today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Taka, kudos on your cartoons. That helped make it fun. Anybody have any questions for Taka? This is really helpful.
Like I should only join the call in my sunglasses. This is the only approach.
That's not fair. I didn't prepare for that.
There's one question there in the chat. Taka, do you see it? Can you see it?
Yes,
okay.
yeah. Let's see. So how do you view R Studio versus R Commander? So the R Studio is still all syntax based. You can do point and click a little bit. And I think R Studio is much more sophisticated. So if you are serious about learning how to use R, I would definitely use R Studio. R Commander is, in my opinion, it's just really useful if you want to get started with R, but sort of concerned about the programming part. R Commander has improved the last few years quite a bit. They added new functions, and you can do more complex analysis. But depending on what you need, the R Commander may not have, some of the algorithm that you need. So with R Studio, you can do pretty much anything in R. The only problem I encountered with R Studio was that when you are developing graphics, sometimes I couldn't output the graphics in a correct way. So every time I try it, I get error. So I got frustrated. So I tend to use just the base R. It does job for most of the things I want to do. But I think our studio is really useful. Yes. It's a small group, so you don't have to raise hand. You can just talk.
So I know that you mentioned that previous to using R, you had used mostly SAS. And that's kind of my situation too, is exclusively SAS. I was
Mhm.
wondering like how difficult was the transition? How much like relearning from the bottom up did you have to do starting with R?
So just to be honest with you, I'm not an advanced R user. So, but I can do most of the things I need to do in R. But it was not difficult. As long as you feel comfortable with SAS or programming, it's just a matter of, adjusting certain things. So if you need to know like how to recode the data or how to run, two sample independent t-test, just a matter of a few minutes Googling, and you can easily figure it out. But if you are very new to the programming or syntax-based applications, it could take some time. You can read the data or you can't like display the data. But same thing as SAS, right? Most of the people at the beginning in SAS, you can't read the data. Like, oh, I don't know how to specify the library, and I don't know how to do this. So there might be a little bit of a steep learning curve. But if you already use syntax-based applications, I would be surprised if you had a hard time just getting started with R.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Feel a little less intimidated now. So thank you. Even showing us how to download it. I know that sounds small, but that is very helpful.
All right, looks like no more questions.
Okay, it sounds like maybe Taka, you answered every question so thoroughly. It was very informative. We really appreciate this, and I think everybody at least knows now what to do and where to go for next steps. So thank you so much. Any final questions? Anything else you all may have thought of? Okay, thank you so much. Enjoy the beautiful day. Thanks again, Taka. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Have a nice rest of the day.
You too. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.